Welcome to the Creative Chats Podcast with Mike Brennan. Hey friends, welcome to another episode of Creative Chats. It's the podcast for artists, makers, and content creators where we talk about creativity, the creative process, and story. I'm your host, Mike Brennan. You can connect with me over my website, which is mikebrennan.me, and I would love to get a lot of the resources that I've created with you in mind into your hands as tools, as resources to be able to help you show up to create. Whether that's making you feel like you have a strong community around you, a sense of not being alone, or if it's practical things of how do you show up consistently and how do you manage your priorities and your time well so that you're actually creating the things that you want to create. I talk about all these things and more and have resources, again, with you in mind, readily available. If you go to dailycreativehabit.com, you'll see some of those resources there. And this podcast is one of those resources. I do this as a labor of love because it's been an important part of my journey to have conversations with people, to share ideas and experiences to help you and to just share what I've been through. Because maybe if it saves you some missteps or gives you some ideas, some inspiration, then I am all for that. Now, today I want to share something that is a little bit kind of unscripted and just timely for me. Just being honest, I recently hit publish on something very quietly. It's a new book of mine, and it's called Blue, A Story of Letting Go. And this book started 3 years ago. It started 3 years ago because I went through a very painful experience that I was trying to make some sense out of and process. And I picked up my phone and I opened the notes section in my phone and just started writing. And what came out was this story, this fable about a boy and a caterpillar who becomes a butterfly. And the story progresses where the boy grows up to be a man. And it's the journey and it's the transformation of not just the caterpillar into a butterfly, but also the boy into the man. It's about learning to let go. It's about dealing with loss. It's about trying as hard as you can to be open-handed. And maybe you are in that season where it's hard. You need to open your hands. You need to let go of something. Maybe it's a dream and you feel like that dream has died, or the time has come for a close on a season, and the change is incredibly difficult. It's incredibly painful. Perhaps it's a relationship, someone that you have loved, and things have changed, and you need to learn to let go. I don't know what that might be for you. Maybe it's both those things. Maybe it's that and more. If anything, in this lifetime, we have experiences that can be incredibly painful, incredibly challenging. Things that there are lessons for us. They're painful lessons, but they're lessons nonetheless if we're open to receiving them, if we're open to actually, and I hate to say this, but receive the gift in the midst of the pain, because sometimes that's what it is, and we don't recognize it as a gift until much later. So there I was with my phone in my hand, the notes app open, just pouring out the story. It was me trying to process. It was me trying to grieve. It was me trying to have a place to express. And when I wrote that, it was just so incredibly painful and tender that I didn't think this was going to be read by anybody else. It was almost feeling like a page out of my journal. So incredibly vulnerable, so incredibly authentic and raw. And that's why it sat there for 3 years, because I didn't really know what to do with it. It was an idea, it was a project, but it felt more like a journal page. It felt like something more that was just for me. And as time went on, you get some healing, you get some perspectives, you get some distance from the initial pain and wounding. And perhaps some other things come up that remind you, and perhaps there's still this tenderness that's there. But you have some scars. You have some places where you're able to talk about some of the things in a way that you're not bleeding all over everybody because it's unprocessed pain, but you're able to share some experience and some perhaps wisdom from what it is that you went through. And so it just felt like a timely prompt for me recently to say, make this into something more than a note in the note section on your phone. Bring this out into public. And I had shown a few people in my life over the past couple of years, very select few, because again, very kind of vulnerable thing. And when I pulled it back out and started thinking about this, thinking about the people who might be able to be helped by this, people who might find some connection in this story and experience, because I think we've all been there. We've all gone through some things that can be incredibly painful, that shape us, that challenge us, that cause us to confront what we're clinging to, and challenging us to be open handed, to think about things differently. And so, one of the biggest challenges, believe it or not, that I had with this when I finally decided I was going to make this into a thing, and sometimes I call these things passion projects. You may have heard me talk about this before on the podcast if you've been a listener for any length of time. And passion projects are simply those things that you want to create because you're passionate about them, because it means something to you, because there's purpose behind what it is that you're creating. And it's not simply just a form of self expression. It's not simply something that you're creating so that you can have monetary means come in. I mean, you hope that all those things are part of things, but the deeper reason is because you're passionate, because you are so connected to this project that you can't help but get it out before other people. And so when I sat down to think, okay, what is this actually going to look like? And practically, how am I going to execute this thing? I had the words. That wasn't the problem. The problem, believe it or not, became, what are the visuals? What are the illustrations going to look like? And I had encountered something probably a year or so ago that made me think about this again. Again, didn't feel like the right time to bring this book out into the public yet, but I was sitting in my daughter's therapy office in the waiting room, and it was a kind of young adult therapy office. So they had a lot of books and games and things in the office waiting room that were just more themed that way. And one of these things was this book. It was called A Sloth's Guide to Mindfulness. And I remember picking up this book thinking to myself, wow, this is interesting, because there's this really simple illustration of a sloth, and each page there would be like kind of one sentence or one idea talking about mindfulness and this sloth illustrated very simply. And as I thumbed through the book, and it was black and white book, very kind of simple execution, but done very, very well, I got to the end of the book and I thought to myself, you know, I could do this. This could be something that could be a format that I could lean into. And so it stuck with me. And so when it came time for this book, from my book, Blue, I was thinking, well, that's what I'll do. I'll kind of emulate that kind of thing. And what ended up happening was that I was struggling because I was trying to create something in a style that was not feeling very authentic to me. And so I started to do something, and then I was sitting with it and I'm like, something about this feels off. And it was like I gave myself this picture in my mind of something that I wanted to emulate, and it wasn't feeling like it was me. And it was causing this disconnect that I wasn't necessarily even aware of on a deeper level, where this is a very personal and passionate project I have, and yet the illustrations were not doing what I needed them to do. And so I felt myself stuck in this. And it wasn't until I finally just said, you know what, I'm going to do this and approach this like I would any other, and perhaps like some of the ones I've done in the past, like my first book, Dear Snow, One Man's Angry Rant Against Winter. It's more of a comical thing and satirical thing. And so I was a little bit worried that the style of illustration would not carry the weight that I needed it to for this new book. I didn't want it to be like cartoony in the sense of it feeling whimsical. And so I had to work through a lot of things for myself to come to the place where I was able to approach this freely and do this in a way that felt more authentic. And I am happy with the results. Someone may look at this and think, well, this is like a kid's book. This is a children's book. And while it can be used with kids, there are certainly themes and bigger ideas in here that are meant for, I think, people who are adults who are dealing with letting go, kids who are dealing with big emotions, not really sure what to do with them. Anyone who's processing change, loss, grieving, letting go, these are big things. And so the packaging of this book is done in such a way that I am calling it a fable. It's not a children's book. It is a story, but it's a fable because there's a lesson here. There's an arc to the story that happens that transformation is key. And I'm hoping that it offers hope for others and it maybe holds up a little bit of a mirror for someone who is going through some of these things, helping people feel seen and heard in the midst of the pain. And honestly, that's what drove me to hit publish on this because it was time. It was time for me not to hang on to this personal story and some of the old wounds and just keep it for myself, but it was time for it to be redeemed and for it to become a beacon of hope for other people and a story where people could find themselves in and perhaps get some encouragement and feel less alone in the midst of some of the pain and struggle. And so that's why Blue was published. That's why it's available now on Amazon. It's available on my website, mikebrennan.me. And I hope that it reaches all the people that it needs to reach, people who need this timely message, as well as I'm looking to get it into the hands of some therapists and counselors, like school counselors or people who help other people process through some of these painful experiences. Because I do believe it can be a resource. I do believe it can be a tool. And there's something about this project that feels like I've let go of this in the process of making this and releasing this. I'm letting it go free from the expectation of it needing to perform or do certain things. And that in and of itself is also a process. Now, do I hope that it reaches a lot of people? Yes, absolutely. Am I trying to market this? Yes, absolutely. But there's also a sense of open-handedness. There's something bigger that feels like it's at work with this particular project as opposed to projects I've done in the past where I feel like the reach is greater. I feel like the ability to speak into people's lives perhaps is a little bit greater. And through talking with some friends, I was saying it's really easy for me to think about myself in terms of, well, I talk about creativity. I talk about that all the time. I create resources around that. I try and get that into your hands to help you create. Like that is what I am very passionate about. I also talk about fun and play. I wrote a book called Make Fun a Habit. And that is something that is important to me, to return to the sense of joy and wonder and rediscover some of the things that we were passionate about as kids, that we just did it because we enjoyed it. How can we recapture some of that in the work that we do, even the creative work we do? So I'm passionate about those things. I speak about those things. I teach about those things. And so this project felt like it was a little bit on the side because it's not about that. This is really more about something that is a life thing, if you will. It's about letting go. It's about grieving. It's about loss. And my friends encouraged me and they said, it's not that far off from what you normally do, because what you do is you create from your experiences. And this was an experience you had. This is something where you can step into how you see things, how you see the world, how you see yourself, how you process, and you make out of that. And that's what you bring out to the world. And so it was kind of a freeing moment to be able to think about this in terms of not this side project that has nothing to do and is disconnected from other things that I do, but it's connected because I'm connected. I'm connected to myself. I'm connected to all these expressions that I have and all these projects that I have my hand in. And perhaps that's something that you need to hear today too. That if you are someone who has multiple interests and multiple projects, and the thing that ties it all together is you're the glue. You're the source of that. Your perspective is the thing that comes out in this work. It's your passion that's felt. It's perhaps your words or the way that you see things, the way that you've experienced things, your self-expression. It's what you're bringing to yourself first as you create this, and then you bring it to the world around you. And you give it as a gift to people so that they can be impacted. We've all been recipients of someone else's work that has tremendous impact on us. I'm sure we can think of songs that are our favorite songs or speak to us in such a way because they speak into an experience we've had. Someone else has created something, and perhaps that wasn't what their even intention was in creating this piece of work, but it spoke to us and it came to us in a way and in a time when we really needed it. And because of that, we hold it in high regard. And perhaps we visit it often. We sit with it often. Maybe it's something, a book, a favorite book of yours, because the story or something in there helps you see the world differently, helps you see and understand yourself better, helps you feel connected to someone else. Perhaps it's a piece of visual art or whatever it is that you're drawn towards, something that someone else has created. They took a chance. They created something probably very much in the same sense of I'm doing this because I need a place to process. I need a place to create something of self-expression. And maybe they didn't even know the impact that the piece of work would have afterwards. And I'm not saying this in a way of like trying to self-aggrandize myself or this work, but I'm saying that because sometimes we just don't know. We're so close to our own work, and it's taking a chance. It's being vulnerable. It's willing to risk, and it's willing to step up, to show up, to do the work, and to process, to put it out there, and then be open-handed, create and release, and encourage it to find its way to people. But people will find what speaks to them. They will keep it around them. They will collect it. They will hold it close because it helps them see and understand, and it's meaningful. There's purpose behind it. So maybe you have something that's been hiding in your phone. Maybe you have something that's been hiding in a desk drawer, something that you started a while ago that you haven't finished. I want to encourage you to go back to that, revisit it, see if there's something there that you can bring back, bring out into the light, finish the thing, create it in a way that has meaning and purpose. Do it because first and foremost, you need it as a place to process, to express, to have something that you've created to remember, to celebrate, to grieve, whatever that looks like. And then share it with others. Know that what you experience, what you see, how you see things can actually have impact on somebody else's life. And perhaps that's the very thing that they need. It can be a healing agent. It can be something that brings hope. It can bring something of redemption, perhaps, to someone else's experiences. It can bring some wisdom. It can bring something that feels like a hug. And man, do we need more hugs in this world today, don't we? But it means taking a chance. It means stepping out. It means publishing something, even if it's quietly at first, and then being brave enough to share, to say, I made this thing. And I don't know, maybe it'll speak to you and maybe it won't. But I made it for me first. And I hope that it speaks to you. I hope that it's something that becomes a voice in your life, a presence, a place of connection and healing, a place of joy, a place of celebration, whatever that looks like. It doesn't necessarily have to be something that's painful or sad. Whatever it is that causes you to create, lean into that. Create from a place of authenticity, of meaning and purpose, and then keep doing that again and again and again. So my encouragement to you today isn't just to go create something, but I want to encourage you to go create something of meaning and purpose, first for yourself and then for others. And I would love to know what that is. I mean, feel free to contact me on social media. I'm on Instagram, Mike Bone. Shoot me a message to my website, mikebrennan.me. Whatever that looks like, I would love to hear about the thing that you are creating or have created. We need to come around each other and celebrate those moments more together. We need the community over competition. We need the work that has meaning and purpose behind it, beauty, a place of authenticity and vulnerability. Lead the way. Go first. I know it's scary. I know it feels uncomfortable, but when you do and you practice that, it just becomes easier. And you find that vulnerability is actually a superpower. Authenticity is actually something that becomes highly attractive, especially as there are more things that are just copy and paste and AI creating things that are content. More and more content creates something of meaning and purpose, something that has your story, your vision, your fingerprints all over it. And you will attract the people who need what you create. So today, go create something meaningful. Thanks for listening today. I'd appreciate it if you would subscribe, leave a rating and a review. It really helps this podcast be seen and heard by others.